It is Wednesday now, and it is Veterans Day, Wednesday, November 11th of 2020. This is now, the stitching on this has been completed as of this morning. I'm really suffering. I didn't use a thimble, and oh my goodness, ow. So the next step is, now that these have been stitched, I'll kind of do a quick review. So I'm using the ticking as the back. These were Redwork designs that I did myself. I drew this onto a piece of muslin with a friction ink pen. I did red embroidery. Each of the three are in a different shade of red. So I started out using a generic red for the apple butter. It was the very first red work of these three panels that I did. Then I went over here to sweet tea, also a generic, and then I decided to look for a color of DMC floss that was considered appropriate for a substitution for turkey red, which is what traditional red work was done using. That's what they used, and it was a dye that was achieved by using the madder root that does not bleed. Now, there were some sites that said the DMC colors, all of them, there were 4 different shades, and I'll try to remember to link those. 381 is, or 382 is the one I think I ended up using for this particular panel. The only one to me that looks a little off is apple butter. It's just so bright red compared to sweet tea and biscuits, but I don't mind. It doesn't bother me in the least. Okay, so after I did the embroidery, I then stitched a piece of fusible interfacing to the right side of each of these panels, and then I did a 1/4 inch stitch all the way around. Then I cut an opening just in the back of the fusible interfacing and turned my panels this direction so that the fusible part was facing out. My edges were then completely finished. I pressed each of the panels to the ticking, and then I did a basic applique stitch on all of these corners. And now I am going to press this again. I have some Warm and Natural that I will use in the middle, and then I have some more of this ticking that I will apply to the back of that using a fusible spray. And then I'm just going to do some stitching in between these panels. So likely it will be 1 and then a series of 3, and then 1. I may go 1 on the top and the bottom, just to compress and kind of quilt the top, the Warm and Natural, and the bottom, and then I'm going to do a square edge binding around the outer edges. My daughter is going to come by today around 10, and I'm going to mark where the buttons will go. I think the last thing I did last night were the buttonholes on the skirt. My thinking on this is that there is a slight flare, and I'm thinking that the buttons should probably be applied at a slight angle. I have just enough black thread. I will be using floss to stitch these buttons on. I feel like the buttons just need that extra little bit of oomph. So, considering that I don't have any more black thread that I'm aware of, there could be some in the closet of hell, but if there is, I don't know where it is. So what I plan to do is do a zigzag stitch, and I may have to do that. I may have to unthread my sewing machine and do a zigzag using like a blue. I have some blue, but it's just too bright to use as a hem. Alrighty, so I got the skirt zigzag stitched. Oops. And I'm going to go around and clip off all these little whiskers before I fold up that 1/2 inch hem that I will stitch down by machine. I think that's probably, for the lightweight nature of this corduroy, that'll add a little bit of weight to the bottom and kind of keep the skirt from becoming an issue, I guess is what we'll say. Something arrived. I also wanted to show you guys, it hasn't been very long that I started my thread catching to use as filler, and look at this. There's quite a lot there. Now there is some floss in there, but it counts. So I probably have enough to make a small needle keep, which I think is kind of cool. Alright, so we got to see what this is. I think I know. So I'll use my paper cutting scissors. Of course, the usual disclaimer. None of this is sponsored. There's no affiliation. I pay for all the nouns. Alright, let's see what we got. Ooh, well, there you go. The reason that I decided to go with this is this and this. There might be some others in here. I was unaware of this. It looks like Milliners, size 3/9. They are a good size. That's not to say I won't use them. Alright. So it looks like I have packages where they just included this, but this right here, this selection of browns and dark colors, I really wanted that for the wool embroidery, wool applique projects. There are some others in here as well. Yeah. So it looks like they may have included another row of these colors, and that's kind of what I was looking for. Just because some of those items I intend to make would be for fall. Now I have to tell you that this is like, I would be hard pressed with my eyes closed or blindfolded. This feels very much like DMC. It's smooth. Let's flip it around and see if it feels the same. Oh yeah, it's a very nice floss. I'll try to make sure to link this in the description box below this video. It also has numbers. That's fascinating to me. Wow. Okay. Yeah, for it wasn't very expensive. I think it was like $6. And it feels amazing. So that's pretty nice. Okay, and the next thing out of the gate, some wool. So this is a product by Primitive Gatherings. It is sheep charm pack. So these are 5-inch squares. There's 10 of them, and I think I don't really want to tear this, so I'm going to go this way. Okay. Right. And then on this side, it is hand-dyed wool from Primitive Gatherings. It's a company in Menasha, Wisconsin. There's their information if you're interested. I did purchase this on Amazon, and it is amazing. I think this was $16. Look at this. So these little pieces will be absolutely, oh, wow, look at that. Perfect for the projects in my Wool Applique book. Oh, that is amazing. Okay. So definitely look for the link below this video. If you're on a smartphone, there's a down-facing arrow under the video, and if you touch it, that will open up the description box. If you're on your computer, the description should be directly below the video. This is Emergency those little packets that you can get. This is tangerine flavor. Alright, I'm getting ready to quilt the Redwork. You guys know I'm not a quilter. Okay. I just feel like I'm absolutely covered up in that temporary spray. It's everywhere. Alright, so I have drawn, well, let's see, away from the camera, I've added a backing piece of ticking, and on the inside between these two layers of ticking is Warm and Natural. And I'm going to machine, I have a line drawn here, but I want to get this done, and I feel like I stabbed my finger. Anyway, I'm going to get these two center pieces done, and then I'll do the ends. So it's just going to be a straight stitch, and I'm going to lengthen the stitch up to about a 3. Okay, so I have it all stitched. Now the next step is to go to the ironing board, remove these friction ink lines, and check it for any mistakes. Employ the use of one of these if there are any. And then I've got to decide what I'm going to do for a binding. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, well, here I am now all of a sudden working on the skirt. What I need to do is turn this waistband so that it is right sides together, and it has to extend past the facing. So this is what they're talking about right here for view C. So it's going to go just past the edge where the facing is. Alright, now I have pinned this one because I needed to know where I was going to put the button, and my daughter had another appointment, so she popped by the house real quick. Thankfully we live real close together. Let me make that adjustment and then had to leave. Alrighty. Oh, and I had to change my thread from white thread to black. Which of course meant that I had to clean George, my sewing machine. Okay. And then we just simply trim at an angle. If you look at the instructions, we're not starting down here at the bottom. We're just going to cut the top half away. So about right here. And I am going to shorten it so that it looks like this. And when you turn this to the proper side, you have a nice finished edge. So that's that one, and then I need to do it on the opposite side. It's like that. And flatten this out and flip it right there. Okay. And before I stitch this, before I make the buttonholes and the button and sew the buttons on, I am going to sew this waistband down by hand. Well, I've managed to forget a step, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, and that is this zigzag along the raw edge on the inside of the facing. Fortunately, it's a simple enough fix at this stage. So I'm going to just stitch, starting right here, all the way down to the end on both of the facings that are faced to the inside. So it would be right along this edge right here on both sides. The skirt waist has been stitched down by hand, and as usual I added a little tab for the back so that you know where the back of the skirt is. And I will be working on the buttons and buttonholes. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I have to do buttonholes is add a second layer of interfacing on the buttonhole side, which would be this side right here. So I'm going to take this to the iron, and I'm going to put another layer of this now that we've determined that this is the buttonhole side. And I'll pin it down. I'm going to use a glass head pin that can tolerate the heat from the iron. So when I take this to the ironing board and press the facing, just press. I'm not going to move my iron. I'm just going to press with the heat. It will adhere to this piece of facing, not the skirt. So it's not going to stick to this. It's going to stick to the facing, and it'll give it just a little bit more substance for the buttonholes. So I'm going to go take care of that. I'll be right back. Alright, and I also wanted to mention this is corduroy, so in light of that I use a press cloth. I'm not pressing my iron directly on the corduroy. I'm using, actually it's a flour sack, and that way my corduroy is protected. And then I need to set up my sewing machine for buttonholes. Let's just take a look at the buttons real quick. Alright, now to sew the buttons on, I'm going to use floss. Okay, and then I need to mark these buttonholes. I've decided that since I am putting such huge buttons on, I'm going to use some of this this Totally Stable Iron-On Tearaway Stabilizer by Sulky. Now, I can't tell you where I purchased this. I've had it since I had my shop over 20 years ago, and all I can say is I'm pretty sure you can get this just about anywhere. This is what it looks like. It's a wonderful product. You just iron it on, and then when you're finished doing whatever it is that you're doing, you can just tear it off. Okay. I'm going to mark the buttonholes on this. So I have marked them. I used a non-heat erase pen, just a regular pen, to mark these enormous buttonholes. I'm going to take this to the ironing board, and I'm going to press it on this side and the wrong side. And the wrong side is the side that I will be stitching the buttonholes. I'll be right back. Alright, so I have located the paper with the buttonholes marked. Now I need to set up my sewing machine. I see a couple things I need to look at. One, I have cleaned it today. number 3 is my buttonhole foot. I have two. One is quite large and cumbersome. I do use it, but I prefer to use it when I'm just making small buttonholes. If I'm doing something large like this, I would rather use this type of foot right here. And that is just me. Buttonholes are sort of one of those, I don't even know what to call that, sort of a, I don't know, would we all just do them the way we want to do them? So this is the way I am going to do this. Now the buttonhole up here I will save for last. And I'm going to start at the very bottom. I am also going to pin, I have not hemmed this yet, but I want to pin this so it doesn't flop around. And by this I mean the facing, the front facing. You want to check to make sure you didn't make it too big. So from the widest part of the button to the ends of the buttonhole, that appears to be just right. So I can tear off this paper. I only want to tear off this part where I've made this buttonhole. I don't want to tear off this part. So I'm just going to hold it with my thumb and tear that away. Okay. I'm going to complete the next buttonhole and then I'll just remove all of this. Now the wonderful thing about this is my buttonholes have been reinforced with this sulky and with 2 layers of fusible interfacing. The way I open up a buttonhole might be common and might not be common, I don't know. But I take a pin like so and I put it before those stitches that go back and forth at the end. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. They're just not showing up right here. I'm going to put this pin just inside where that is. And it sometimes can be kind of difficult, but you really want to put that pin there. Then I'm going to take my seam ripper, and starting midway in the kind of toward the front part of the buttonhole, I'm going to poke a hole all the way through like so, and then I'm going to use a pair of scissors and snip. Now, because these are kind of thick scissors, I might have to look for a different pair. I don't know. But you really want to just, you know, do the best you can to only cut the unstitched spot between the two lines of stitching. Okay, that looks good so far. Take your time. The reason I put that pin there is I don't want to accidentally cut past that. Okay, I'm going to turn this around and put this pin in the same area on the other end of the buttonhole and snip just between the lines of stitching. Okay, I'm going to take a button, see if the button fits. Now, my personal preference is that the button be a little tight. I don't want it to be so loose that it's just going to slip and come undone. So that's good. That's nice and tight, but it will still go through. I will do the one on the top of the waistband. I don't need to add anything. I mean, I might add a piece of this tearaway, but it's doubled over interfacing on the inside of this waistband. So I don't feel like I need to add anything, but I might. You just, you know, you never know. And this is the one that will experience the most stress on this garment. So that is also something else to keep in mind. But when I come back, I'll be working on the hem, or, oh, I might sew the buttons on first. We'll see. Alright, so the buttonholes have been stitched. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I added a 6th. Just because. So the next step now is to come across the front of the skirt, line it up, and stitch on the buttons. So because this button is big, you have to have a large buttonhole for that to go through. However, it slips, and that makes a massive difference in the size of the skirt waist. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just put the buttons where I had them originally placed, like this one. I'm going to slide this one over, and on the inside I'm going to put a buttonhole on the little tab right here and sew a button that will then go through to the inside, and that will hold this waist in place so it will be the correct size rather than too large. Okay, so the next step in this whole skirt process is to stitch the remaining buttons, and I'm using this dark floss to stitch the buttons like so. go. So here's the skirt. I think it turned out absolutely adorable. So there's the waistband. Now this is the addition of an interior button to kind of help keep the waistband in place. Let's see, it goes this way. And there's those buttons. So due to the waist, I had to create a way to keep this top button pulled all the way over to the smallest side, and that was the addition of this interior button. That's not on the pattern. So while I was doing some of the work on that, I was listening to Matthew McConaughey's new book, Green Lights, and then I started working on the embroidery. So I've managed to do this much of the tail, and then I think next when I finish this portion, get this all filled in as is, I will do the body. The leaves down here are a green that I did not have, but I now do have. So I'm going to swap out the color green that I had initially chosen for a more holly looking. I mean, I have just a massive number of green shades now, and I think I may go with this deep green, and then for the berries I could either go, I think, bright red. I do have sort of a burgundy red, but I think I'm going to stick with that bright red. Yeah, that's my preference. Okay. So these two will replace these two right here. I do have the orange. Oh, I need to choose another blue. Let's see. The blue that I would like to choose is sort of a cobalt. Like this color right here. And that is for some of the front part of our little bird. And these colors go back with the new. So that is where I am at the moment. I'm very happy with how it looks. I'm very pleased that I have managed to get this much of this done, the skirt finished, all of the sewing, not sewing, but the applique on the Redwork is done, and I have received the Primitive Gathering wool. So I'll begin working on those projects as well. You know, this time of year it's just like one project after another. So, but the main thing is going to be the closet that I don't even have a word for that closet. It needs to be cleaned. It's like cleaning out a horse stall. I need a pitchfork and a wheelbarrow. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.